As part of the OIC second generation product, Oracle gives customers access to Integration Insights. It is available when a subscription to the Enterprise Edition is opted for. Although it is not a business intelligence product, Insights does provide a capacity for business process activity monitoring or real-time process analytics. Oracle suggests using Insights for tracking business performance and milestones, for example, for orders or other business transactions that could flow through the OIC platform. On another more practical level, I wondered if the Insights capability could help me track files sent in by third parties for processing. Support staff are often asked by business users if a certain file has been processed. They may know the process name or even part of the file name expected, so this is a very good use case for Insights. I've created a very simple REST-enabled integration. Using the POST method, the file details recorder integration takes a very simple JSON payload. The JSON payload includes some data elements that we're going to add to our Insights model. These include the scheduled process polling name, its runtime instance ID, together with a file name. The file details recorder integration has been designed for one purpose only, for use in our Insights model. In order to execute it, we will add it to one or more parent integrations that will poll for files, then call the file details recorder integration as part of its process flow. In this very basic integration, we will assume that a scheduled process will connect to an FTP endpoint to list and process the files one at a time. As part of the for each loop, we will call our file details recorder integration for each file in the list, before we go on to do some other file processing or other actions downstream. For the mapping to the file details recorder, we will map elements of this scheduled polling integration process, including the integration name and the source integration flow ID. We will also map the file name as the most important piece of information in our specific use case. In a similar way, we can add the file details recorder integration to any integrations that handle files if we want to record the file names. Now we have our file details recorder integration process created and linked, we can think about adding it to our Insights model. Under the Home menu, select Insight. The console screen is aimed at the end user for at runtime monitoring. We'll take a look at that later. This model screen is aimed for use by the integration specialist working with the business analyst to create the right milestones, dimensions, and measures. To create a new Insight model, click the Create button. Give your model a name and a description. The Insight model needs milestones, some dimensions or measures, and a unique identifier set as minimum configuration items. Firstly, some start and end milestones are required. For this, a set of mandatory initial entry and terminal exit points need to be defined. Next, the mandatory unique instance identifier is configured. This value is a logical group of runtime objects. For example, a purchase order number could be used as an instance identifier. In our use case, however, the logical grouping would be the flow ID of the scheduled polling integration process, as although the files it will be processing will cross many instances, the files themselves belong to the same logical object, that is, the runtime polling process. As we have defined some milestones, we can now link them to dimensions or measures. Press the Add Dimension button. For source flow ID, we will map that to the start milestone. We will make this dimension filterable, which means we can search against its content later on. We'll create a dimension called integration name, and we will also make this searchable. We will map this dimension to the start milestone as well. The final file name dimension will be made filterable and linked to the start milestone too. With our milestones set and our dimensions created and associated, we can map the milestones to our file details recorder integration process. From the integrations page, select the hamburger next to the integration and choose the Map to Insight option. We will see our available models in the list. Select the model required. In order to map the milestones to the integration process activities, make sure that you highlight the milestone that you wish to associate first. Once highlighted, you'll be able to associate it with an integration action. We'll use the Start process. Hover your mouse icon over the action and right mouse click. Press the plus button. You'll notice that the milestone and integration are now linked. Let's repeat that for the terminal milestone too. Make sure it is highlighted, and on the action, right mouse click and press the plus button. The terminal milestone and the REST response action are now linked. Next, we'll link the dimensions to runtime values. For the file name, we'll map that to the file name value in the inbound JSON payload. For the integration name dimension, we'll map that to the name of the calling source integration name. And for source flow ID, we will map that to the instance flow ID of the calling source integration process. Lastly, the unique instance identifier should be mapped. We'll map this to the runtime instance ID of the file details recorder integration process. We can save our mappings and close the Insight Designer. Our Insight model should now be ready, so we can activate it. Head back to the Insight menu. Select the model and click the button to activate it. Once it is showing as active, we can test it out. Let's run a couple of files through it. Process 1 will poll a couple of files, listing them both, and call our file details recorder process in a loop. When the file details recorder process is executed each time, it should capture the insights data. To view the insights information, go back to the Insight menu, but this time choose the Consoles option. The milestone summary dashboard shows that our file tracker process has handled 2 events. As we just processed 2 files, the polling source integration has looped over each file in turn, calling the file details recorder twice. We can open the Business Transactions page to view our insight data in more detail. It shows that we've processed 2 files and we've recorded each of those file names. We've also grouped those details by integration name and source flow ID. Remember that in our setup, we've made those dimensions filterable. So if we have a long list of transactions, we can add some search criteria to narrow that list down. Let's run a few more transactions through. First, let's run process 1 again to poll and list the same files as before. And then we'll run process 2, which will poll and list 2 other files. The milestone summary now shows 6 events having been fired. Process 1 now having polled and listed 4 files in total, plus 2 new other files polled and listed by the second polling integration process. Again, we can open up the Business Transactions screen to view the data and narrow that results list down by adding search criteria to those filterable fields. Remember that the purpose of this use case was to help me list and search for files that have been processed. As I have also captured the polling process's runtime instance ID, I can use that for further investigative purposes. For example, I can copy the source flow ID and head over to the monitoring area to run a search on the polling process. We can see that for instance ID ending in 767, this process listed and looped over 2 files, and we were able to find this instance with the help of our file tracker insight model. So, to summarize, insights are a useful tool and provide you with the capacity for business process activity monitoring or real-time process analytics.